Hello, my dear friend, and welcome to the Spiritually Engineered Podcast, where we take a deep dive into the human experience from a spiritual perspective. Come on in, and I invite you to stay. All right. So I recently did a social media post where in essence, I talked about essentially life is great, warts and all. So I want to take a little step back here, and I want to be able to guide you, and if you allow me to, help you to look at things from a higher perspective. You know, when I was making that post, I felt like it was an important thing, even for myself. And I noticed when after I had made that post, some things had came up, but one thing I did experience was I felt lighter, which to me is only indicative of how true of what I shared and talked about, how much reality is. So when it comes to life on planet Earth, even with all the crazy shit that's going on out in the world, open the news, open the social media, whatever the case may be, right? All that could very easily be like, nah, that's not true. It's terrible. Or you may have a pessimistic view. But for me, how I get to this place is not coming from a place of like ignorance or being naive. I understand there's some crazy effed up shit going on here in this world, things that we're not even aware of, right? But even then, a long time ago, and I remember mentioning in this post, and I want to share this with you, is that no matter where I go in life, through all the unpleasant experiences that I have or may have in the future, I made a decision within myself to never allow those unpleasant experiences justify a poor perspective on life. Take a look at it from this way. You and I, we're faced with life, whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not. Okay? We have to face it. We're here. What else are you going to do? What else are you going to do? God forbid they ever thought about outing yourself. Although technically that would be an option. But again, disclaim, I don't wish that for anybody, right? I would wish for everybody to live a fulfilling life and be successful on their own terms. But back to that statement, we're faced with life whether we like it or not. So given that's the case, and that's the reality, why not look for the ways that it's great? And the key ingredient in that lies in choice, lies in our free will. Because that right there is a universal law. Meaning it's universal, it's a law like the law of gravity. You can argue it and say, I can argue it and say, oh, I don't believe in gravity. Okay. And then I try stepping off a building thinking, oh, gravity doesn't apply to me. And then, done. Right? Like, it's that silly, right? To just argue with a law when we have to abide by it. So take that same concept, but with free will. We have to abide by it. Everybody's innately free. Whether they think they do or not, it's irrelevant. It matters, but in terms of just the reality, it doesn't. Because we're innately free. Nobody can take your freedom away unless, okay, let me phrase it like in the me. No one can take my freedom away from me unless I give it permission. And that it can be an idea, it can be a person, it can be a social group, it could be anything. But it requires my consent to give into my power in order for it to have power over me. Now, if I don't, that's where I'm more free. I remember There was I was watching an episode on the Enthusiastically Spiritual with Teresa and Tom Shantz and Tiger Cole. They talk a lot of cool things about the spiritual stuff, and I recommend it. By the way, if you're listening to this, a little plug there for them because they're doing very important work, and I tune in from time to time, and I always get a whole lot out of it, and just reminders and the whole nine. And they were talking about not compromising on your spiritual goals. So for me, not compromising all my spiritual goals, that's interesting. So like the way they framed it, because it's not something that I talk very much about, or for myself at least. What does that look like in practice when I'm not compromising? And when they were talking about it, then I was able to come to this for myself, is that when I'm moving through life, I don't allow myself and my vibration to get to a low point where it becomes a detriment to myself. And especially when I'm in environments that's heavy and there's a lot going on and it's emotional. But it's like still holding true, holding on to that there's a bigger picture, because there is. There is a bigger picture to everything. This is what the college is about, is helping people have a higher perspective about life. And even if put the college aside, it is important picture it is very important that each of us have a bigger picture of our life. And I think our part is being able to design that. What's the bigger picture? But then there's another part as well too of what we came to work with spiritually. Well, our decision we made as a soul before incarnating into planet Earth, where we all experience this mass spiritual amnesia. So it's a mixture, right? Okay, remembering what I came here for, and I can tune into it intuitively within myself. It's a feeling. It's a feeling that you have and and you've experienced. It's just a matter at times I know for me, I have to reconnect with it, because when life be life and I get pulled all over. Now with the whole freedom thing, I understand that because of that and my understanding of freedom, which is like the tip of the iceberg, I understand that for me, I'm never going to blame something outside of myself for something that happened to me. I'm never going to blame. But at the same time as well, I have to also be careful not to be super critical and be like, oh, you should have known better, or da 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 da, because that can be a thing too. Got to be careful about that, at least for myself. I don't know about you. So I think it's important that we just do the best we know how, stay in the course, remember, recognizing that there is a bigger picture, and also looking at it from that perspective. When going back to the compromising on spiritual goals, what's coming up for me is what that means to me. Not compromising on my spiritual goals means that I stay committed to what I decided to do, what I decided to work with energetically this lifetime. And you decided to work with something specific in your life purpose. You didn't just show up here randomly. And if you think otherwise, then my friend, this podcast is not for you. But you can always feel free to listen, and if you're open. We have that we have a plan. We're like, the more I recognize at a certain point, like, man, I'm actually a mastermind. With all the stuff that's coming up, and seeing how it all fits in my life and my own journey, I sometimes look at myself like, damn, you mastermind, you. But I can't also forget my spiritual helpers, who also are moving pieces behind the scenes and doing things on the other side that I'm not aware of at times. And I've got confirmations from them too. So there's a lot going on here in this material realm, as much as there is going on in the spiritual realm. All the more reason to understand and understand more and live in two worlds at once. To look at everything from the viewpoint of energy. Not just looking at it from one material sided aspect. Not glorifying science. It has its place, but it's not the end all be all. There's more to the physical. So, not compromising on my spiritual goals is staying true, staying committed, staying on track with what I've come to do. And that kind of stuff, when it comes to, okay, what is it that I came to work with? Mind you, I'm not saying I have it all figured out for myself. However, I have a good understanding and I've gotten bits and pieces together. And that's pretty much the process of that. When it comes to our life purpose, is like rediscovering and getting all these pieces that we will get in pieces. We're not going to get what we've come to do in one moment. And although everybody's different, I'm sure everybody has different experiences and could argue otherwise. I'm not going to argue that. And I believe this is probably possible. But in my experience, and I think it applies to a lot of people, is that it's just a step-by-step process where I'm discovering, okay, well, from these experiences I'm having, I'm learning this about what I've come to work with, because that's where the value of my past is, where it plays a part. Looking at the clues, not getting caught in the emotions of the drama, because I'm not working with my past that way. If I start doing that, if I start projecting or living in the past or reliving in the past, excuse me. Same side on the future as well too, where I can run into issues where I start projecting and living in the future when it's not even the case right now in this world, in this current reality. So all we have is the beautiful now. And that's also universal as well. That is also a reality. We only have but the present moment right now. That is how it is out there in the universe, in my opinion. So committing to what I've come to do. So it's a very important thing to not compromise that. And just to give you some greater clarity, when it comes to spiritual goals, it's like, think about the intangible. Simple examples like, I want to work on patience. I want to work on follow through. I want to work on being a better listener. So like some examples like that, I kind of work with from month to month. It's part of what I do. It's part of my, when I set goals month to month, I always set like a couple. I try not to put a whole lot of pressure on myself, because I sometimes, I don't know about you, I can't put that pressure on myself. Like, I have to accomplish everything by tomorrow. No, little by little, baby steps. I mean, there's that saying, Rome wasn't built in a day, or something like that, or something to that effect, right? It takes time. Much like when you look at how the growth of a tree, where it started out as an acorn and then it got to the place where it's at right now through years and years of just, the progression. So that's something that can't be rushed. And so the key thing here with, I guess what I'm going to start to tie it back to, like, my initial premise here of like, life is great, warts and all, you know, because one of the big differences there is a couple things. One of them, which can go back to personal concepts. So like, what are your concepts about yourself, others, and life, where you may be adopting a poor perspective, a pessimistic perspective? Now, I'm just saying that, like, I'm not assuming you are, because I'm not you, right? But this is something for you to think about within yourself. And this is why it's important, because of the time I spent doing the inner work within myself. This is why I'm at, well, it's part of why I'm at this place where I can say this with confidence. And I may experience at some things later on in the future for me where it's going to be unpleasant. But that's only because in our growth, in our evolution and growth, part of the process is growing pains. I just have to be careful though. Okay, yeah, I may experience growing pains in the future. But I think it's important that I don't, and this can go back to my concepts and like my belief systems, where I might experience something and okay, I start experiencing growing pains. But if I'm not careful, I'll start taking that from growing pains to suffering, where I start doing unnecessary wear and tear on my body, where it starts getting, the most extreme can happen, where physical stuff can come up, like to that level. So to me, I have to be careful with that, and that's part of the reason why, let's take it from this angle. When I mentioned the physical stuff coming up, most, if not all, of the causes of the physical things that come up, that manifest illnesses, disease, etc., Stress is a key player in all of it. Stress. And I would say the compounding of stress, that'll do it. The compounding of stress, meaning if you're dealing with something chronic, and oftentimes it usually is the case, especially if for something serious to pop up, it's something chronic that has been happening for a while. Give it time and it will develop. That's just the law of energy of the universe, in my opinion. So what I want to be able to get, what I want to instill in you, because like I said, I can worry about all this stuff. I'm a spiritual person. I have concern, right? And this, for me, the message is not okay. So the solution is, so what Alvin is saying is don't care at all, be apathetic and whatever, and just I don't care. I don't give a crap about this, and that. I'm not saying that, and that's not even the answer. And be careful if you think that, not to jump from one side to the other to teeter totter, because it's about balance, right? It's having the right amount of concern and yet still be detached in my opportunities. That's what it's about. And so when I'm involved with people in my life experiences and when I'm going through this school, that's why for me, as I go through my day, I'll have moments when I'll check in with my guidance. But then at some point, what I always do, and I make it a point every single day before dinner, I'll take a couple minutes to evaluate my day. Because that's the part right there that helps me to come back to that bigger picture. And I'm talking bigger picture here, and I don't want to assume that you've been a recurring listener here, so I'll keep it simple here. Looking at it from the 5 spiritual keys. I am energy. I came here to learn and grow. I have a unique life purpose. I have inner guidance. I am free. Those 5 keys are very simple yet profound aspects of the bigger picture of life. It's how I carry myself. It's what I embody. It's what I walk with. I walk the walk. I don't just talk, right? And if you take a look at the resources I have in the show notes, to me, those are good places to start if you want to have a higher perspective. If you feel open or you want to open yourself up to something higher, because there is. My recommendation for you, my friend, is to look at the show notes. Again, I always share that stuff because I believe in it and it works. I use it. I work with it in my own life. This isn't coming from just, I'm just talking about it. I mean, of course, I'm biased because I'm a part of it. I know I work with people that also work with it. But it works for me. And I know it can work for a lot of people. And you never know if something's going to work for you unless you give it a try. At times, life can be trial and error. Part of the growth process. But because we also have spiritual help, we can shortcut a lot of that and not have to always just figure it all out when we have guides helping us along the way. One of the reasons why it's such a powerful tool, to have that reestablished two-way communication with your spirit guides. It's a powerful profile consultation that I myself offer, which I'm going to talk more about that and offer that up pretty soon. It's in the works right now to put in all the information, website and stuff like that. So stay tuned for that. If something if you resonate with me, or I can always just sharing the resources where you can connect with other people, other consultants that help people just feel more empowered in their lives. And the more people we have who are feeling empowered, the more that creates a ripple effect. So going back to that perspective, right? Life is great, warts and all. Even after all that's said, at the end of the day, life is still great. It's still great. Now, depending on my concepts, may say otherwise. But again, they're belief systems and they can be examined and they can change. And sometimes it's amazing how what I focus on can confirm. There's like that confirmation bias. Can confirm like, oh no, I disagree because I've had these experiences. But remember what I said, and it's something I suggest to you. Don't allow those unpleasant experiences to justify a poor perspective. That is a choice. What's also a choice is looking at the silver lining, reading between the lines. Because when I judge, and that is right there the key, where I disconnect myself from the bigger picture, that right there, judgment. And that also came up in the conversation with Teresa and Tiger when they were having on the recent one of the podcasts I listened to recently, we're talking about spiritual goals and whatnot. Judgment. When I judge a situation, when I judge my experiences, when I judge other people, I disconnect, I separate myself from myself, I separate myself from other people. This is why I believe sometimes my eyes can lie to me. And so when I listen to people share, even if someone says something ridiculous, always take things with a grain of salt. But now when I hear something that someone shares that I resonate with from my experiences, of course, I'm just like, yeah, I resonate with that. But it's always a good practice to take things with a grain of salt and put it together yourself. What is that? What's going on there? And so I'm gonna get to like the bread and butter of going back to my initial premise here. But something else I want to talk about before getting there. It's important that we, as I'm navigating life and going back to what I said about we all came to work with something, we all came to do something specific, but not so specific that it's like, oh, I came to do this, buy this donut at this shop right here, and that's it. I fulfilled my purpose. It's not an assignment. Purpose is more of something that you embody and you commit to and you express and you live daily, day in and day out. Another choice. It's not like an endpoint or it's like, okay, I reached my purpose, and no, it's day in and day out. It's a process. It's in the now. So that being said, you are living your purpose. If you listen to this podcast, you are doing what you've come to work with. And if you're not, just simply look at how you've been feeling, Or if you're not sure, look at how many up days you have where you're feeling fulfilled versus how many down days where you've been feeling irritated, moody, or anything emotional, and see which one happens more often. If you have more up days, you're on track. If you have more down days, then there's the need to adjust. And it's just a tiny adjustment. Just a tiny adjustment is all that's necessary. So back to the purpose, it's important to maintain your direction because there's so much going on. Because free will is a universal law, it's a free for all here. I mean, yeah, we have societal rules and whatnot, and the bigger picture of all of that is to help people respect each other. Even though how it plays out actuality, of course, we could make arguments and whatnot, and of course, it's not. I'm not saying it's perfect and everybody's respecting each other because I know we're not. But looking at systems and whatnot in the bigger picture, not getting caught in the emotions and the stories and the judgment. But it's important that I maintain my direction in all of this. Because we all have our lives, right? We all have our lives. And I think, one of the things that, for me, what can affect a poor perspective, I don't know about you, but in my experience and what I believe is that every spiritual individual, whether they align with something of religion or not, or they're just spiritual people have a tendency to have over concern. At least I know for myself. And that right there is the kicker. That right there is like a low blow to myself. Because when I care so much, remember what I said about stress as is like a very key ingredient in a lot of the physical illnesses that happen? It's a silent killer. From the spiritual, you can look at it even from a scientific perspective, if that's your thing, if that's how you like to relate with more. But at least both can agree it is a killer. So it really, so with all the stuff that's going on, and like, and whatever is going on with me, see, the judgment in me would focus on all these stories and all these judgments. But if I were to take a step back and see what's going on in my energy, man, I'll look at myself like if I was not the type of person that gets into politics and gets all this riled up and all this and rah, 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 and all this, and I were to take a step back and look at myself, I'd be like, man, this guy's got tight muscles. He carries himself with that sense of animosity, or like, so what I'm trying to get at here, it's not about what you do or what you are necessarily like facing or dealing with, but it's how. So it's not about what's going on, the thinking, etc. I can be worrying about X, Y, and Z. I can worry about, conflicts that are happening in other countries. But if I don't look at the how it's affecting my energy, that's when it's like I'm using my energy to work against me. What's the point in worrying about X, Y, and Z in the politics and the spheres? Like, I know there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's very easy to, especially like I said, remember, spiritual people, at least in my opinion, tend to have a lot of concern or over concern. But it's like, for me, that's just not I'm not gonna, as far as me and my energy, it's not gonna look pretty. It's not gonna go well. And this is why precisely it's important to practice detachment. And again, and it goes back to having a bigger picture and why it's important to examine one's own concepts. Because we can only go so far as whatever our concepts are. But if I have limiting concepts, then I'm going to hit a wall or a ceiling at some point. But this is why I'm sharing with people, because I want to let people know that there's something higher than where they are, so they can rise up, so you can rise up. You don't have to stay in the crap in the trenches, because that's not all that there is when it comes to life. Our spirit guides don't operate from the trenches. They operate from the bird's eye point of view. They see the bigger picture. They don't worry about all the stuff that's going on. They don't even worry about me. And I've been through some shit. They don't worry about that, because they know I'm a spiritual being having just human experiences, temporary human experiences. They know. They have a bigger picture. Maybe think about the next time when you get chills for a moment, and I want you to reflect on that. My invitation to you, because this is something that it's beyond the intellectual, and it's more about, because I'm saying bigger picture. If it's just an idea, that's not practical. You need to have an experience for it, like I have. I've experienced that bigger picture through my own life experiences, and that takes time. But if that's something that you're curious about and want to know more, and you're open to it, give it time and you will have it. You will get it. You will get there. Because that's where I was in your shoes at some point, trying to want to understand a lot of stuff. That was part of what attracted me to this spiritual work. I knew there was something bigger to life, but nobody in my life, I didn't find it in Catholicism. I didn't find it in my workplace. I didn't find it at home. Nothing. No, I didn't even have anybody to talk to when I was exploring, when I wanted to understand the spirituality from a bigger picture, beyond what I was taught as Catholic growing up. Now, don't get me wrong, I appreciate a lot of what I did get from my Catholic upbringing. And those pieces that have helped me and still serve me now, I keep. But there are some stuff that don't serve, and I let those go. And that's really what's about. And it's in my autonomy and my right, just as much as it's yours, to take what works and leave what doesn't. Making it practical. Making it practical. And it's the making it practical piece, how I look at living spiritually. It examines things from how I do things and not get so caught up in the what. Because like I mentioned before, and I can't emphasize this enough, the judgment. That right there is the key. Because when I judge, I won't listen. I'll be closed-minded. I'm just like, whatever. And I'll be so stubborn. And life is ever changing. Life is all fluid. If I try to face life with that rigidity, it's going to hurt. When life be life, and my friend, life's gonna hit hard. Like getting hit square in the sternum, boom, with a steel bat. That's what it'll feel like if I get stubborn and I just buy into my judgments. And this is why it's important that I have to be aware of the subtle ways that I judge people, my life experiences, my situations, other people's situations. Like I said, I'm not exempt from all this. I'm guilty of judging like a motherfucker. I'm guilty of it. So I'm not like I said, this is all coming from experience. But like I said, I've done the work enough to know, like, okay, I need to be careful with this because it can be very dangerous. And that's why I take that time to practice detachment. And when I have those initial judgments come up, this is where it's like an art. Okay, this is judgment, but I'm not going to buy into that. And it's more about, okay, what are some constructive thoughts that I can have rather than just feeding into or indulging in the judgments. Because that's something that I'm learning from myself lately is not to indulge in those thoughts, because the more I do that, with my life energy, I'm going to make it grow. And if I keep at it long enough, it starts to become like a black hole. And at that point, my vibration starts to become a hazard to other people in my environment. I don't know if you can think of anybody in your life that you steer clear of, because it's something about their energy is just like, it's like siphoning, like a vampire. You know? And there are people like that out there. And that's their growth process. And yet, I'm going to chime in again at this point. But their spirit guides aren't tripping or worried about or afraid for them. Because there's that bigger picture. There's a bigger picture. One of the many things I want to emphasize so much in this episode. So, well, a lot of things that I said, and I covered a lot, it's a combination of everything that I've been sharing with you thus far that has brought me to this place where I can still say life is great, warts and all. Because I can look at it from how great it is, or I can look at how depressing it is. But it goes back to choice. I am free. You are free. I have my life to live just as much as you do. I can spend my time worrying about all this. But then it's like, well, what am I doing with my life? At least for me, I have to ask. If I'm like getting caught up in this, if I'm getting caught up in something that's not in my best interest, some sense it's like, well, I must be getting something out of it if I'm going to be spending energy in it. And what that thing might be that I'm getting out of it may not be a good thing either. But nevertheless, this is why for me, I'm working on being more, and I'm making progress and being more sincere with myself and what I do. And as I'm moving moment to moment with the thoughts in my head and what's going on, to navigate all of that, to be a manager of my thoughts and not be a servant of my thoughts, a servant of my mind. The mind is the servant. It makes a horrible master. So, my apologies. I feel like I was swearing a bit much here from these episodes, but if you know me, if you hung out with me long enough, you know that I can be a sailor at times. I try to keep it to a minimum, you know. I want to keep it professional, keep it respectful here. But for me, though, you know, I say it with emphasis, though, this episode, because I really mean it. I'm taking it to an extreme in terms of how I'm communicating it. But nevertheless, though, this is like the important stuff here. So, you know, think about it for yourself. What are some ways perhaps you might be judging yourself and your life experiences? You know? What would your life look like or feel like if you saw your life from a higher perspective? What would your life look like if you connected with that feeling of there is a bigger picture to life? There's more to this human experience. It's not the end all be all. This is just a school. It's a school. Class is in session and we're all here in our own process working on our many things, which is unique to each and every single one of us. And what you're working on and what you're working with is unique to you, and not anybody else has that. So you can be proud of what you got going on because you're unique. So to just to put a bow on all this is more of like a reminder that I said earlier again. So it's not about what you do and all this stuff and what's going on and the XYZ, the nuances, but rather it's how you do it. And so that's right there is really about, okay, is what I'm doing, my habits, my conscious belief systems, is all this working for me or is it not? And if it's not, well, there's that invitation to see what I can do about it. And because of that refinement piece that I've been working on, taking some little time each and every single day, like 10 minutes or so, not even a whole lot, mind you. I don't spend every waking hour like, oh my God, and make everything so deep and what's this and what's that. Well, at some point, the intellect will start working, my intellect will start working too damn hard. And it's like imagining my head is just like steam coming out of my ears. I'm like, my God, you need to take a chill pill, touch some grass, go for a walk. And that's part of why I go for a walk sometimes, because I feel like my mind is just chatter, thinking, analyzing, dissecting, trying to make sense of and all this. This is where breath work works tremendously. And for me, where I go for a freaking walk and just enjoy nature. Connect through the bigger picture through nature. I think that's one, I'll share that. When I look at nature, when I look at a clear, beautiful, starry night sky, that to me, and that will be my invitation to you, go out in nature. That to me is a good opportunity if you want to feel into the bigger picture. Because I can talk about it all I want, but I could talk to you as much as I can about it, but it's useless unless you have a feeling for it. And so my suggestion to you is go for a walk, go to like a nice scenic area if you're able to. Like I said, if you can go out and see the night sky, if that's available to you, go do that and just take a moment to just take things in. Don't have your phone. I mean, if you have your phone on you, just don't put it on silent mode. Just turn it off if you can. Keep it there so that, for emergency purposes or whatever. And just go out and immerse yourself in nature, because I know nature is a powerful way for me to connect, what has helped me a lot. Like, oh yeah, there is so much to this than what is going on the internet and all this stuff, man. The emotions and whatnot. But because we're in a school, this is why I say this is like a free for all. There's so much going on. And it's precisely the fact that it's a free for all, given that everybody's free. This is where the mastery, this is where, rather than going from that person, who's spiritual, that may have this tendency to be over concerned about things generally outside of my control, shift that to, no, I'm going to focus my energy in what's in my control. That's working from the pivot of how I do it. How I do it is, looking at it from that pivot and, doing that work from there. Because when I can work and improve on how I do things, it's it's just nothing short of magical. And just what things pop up, the insights I get from my team, um, it's awesome. It's just like if you have any experience or something, feel free to comment if you're able to. I know I'm on Podbean and Spotify here, but if you can leave a comment or something, if you have any insights or something, I'd love to hear that, because yeah, that right there is just it's gold, man. I would want for a lot of people to experience and feel what I felt at various points in my life with my spirit guides, being out in nature, feeling into just the vastness of just everything, the bigger picture. And so with all this being said, no matter what, for myself, I'm never going to allow the heaviness, I'm never going to allow emotions to paint a terrible picture of life, because I know life is there for each and every single one of us. And when I actually operate on the areas where I know I have control within myself, that's where I make my life work for me. When I'm just like, and when I'm looking through that lens of, okay, the silver lining, okay, how is this helping me? Rather than, oh, why is this happening to me? And that's our secret power. Each of us, we all have that. We can do that. No matter what. Life can be lifing, but you know what? You're resilient AF. You are resilient. You are super, uber resilient. So, tap into that and hone it. Because I know the more that you do, and just the more, like, even just considering, like looking at things from a higher perspective. Again, a good place to start. Check out the resources. It's amazing how my life how I have been experiencing life, how it's taken a different turn. and what's been coming up and what I've been manifesting and attracting because of that shift within myself. Because it's that inside out beautiful magic that happens when I can shift within myself. The environment has a way of reflecting that, and that's, yeah, maybe it might be confirmation biases, I don't know, but whatever I put energy into will keep growing. I can put it to the good or not so good. The good, the positive, working for me, or the negative, not so good, working against me. Choice, my friend, with a sprinkle of sincerity to follow through on what needs to be done. So this podcast, or at least this episode, has just been about just looking at things from that bigger picture, right? Not getting necessarily to nuances. I mean, there's so much to it, but I'm very passionate, and this is something that's been a part of my journey tremendously. What's helped transform my life is this bigger picture. And the best place, in my opinion, to start, if you feel like, if you're ready for that, if you want to take on a higher perspective, if you want to see more, understand more, feel more, know more, I just invite you to check out the show notes that I got available here. That's it. And also, follow your heart. You have your feeling nature. You have your intuitive. You're psychic. Just like me and your neighbors. So, stay awesome, my friend. Keep it going. Chin up high. You got this. I believe in you. And this has been another episode of Spiritual Engineered. I'm your host, Alvin Cepeda, signing out. And as always, take care, my dear friend.